everyone. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Minds Speak. I'm Lauren with Creme de Mint, a branding and packaging design agency, and I'm here with my co-host, Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm founder of Cloud Create Web Development based in Tampa.
And today we are so excited to welcome Carrie Sporer with Swair. Thank you so much for being here today, Carrie.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about you and how you got started with a dry shampoo line.
Yeah, so my story is a bit roundabout. My background is not in beauty at all. I actually worked in fashion accessories for most of my career. But I started running back in 2007 when I actually met my co-founder, Meredith. We didn't know each other, but we had signed up for the same fundraising group for the New York City Marathon so that we could, raise money for a charity while we were running to secure our spots. And we ended up running the same pace. So ran hundreds of miles together that first summer, have run thousands of miles together since then, including this morning. And we just shared the complaint that after every run, we were so sweaty and needed to wash our hair in the shower. And, now people kind of understand the skinification of hair, that your scalp is really just an extension of your face. But at the time, we were washing our hair in the shower almost 7 days a week, and it was wreaking havoc on our hair and scalp. And the other thing in the market was dry shampoo, but that really only works on a little bit of sweat. If you have truly 10-mile New York City summer humidity training run hair, you're not getting away with dry shampoo. And we really fantasized about a product that would allow us to go from sweaty to ready really quickly, but there was nothing on the market. And we complained about it for more than a decade. And finally, back at the end of the 2019 was when we started doing research to see if somebody could bring this product that was missing from our get ready routine to life. And yeah, we launched in September of 2020. So a lot of this happened during the pandemic. Yeah, and that is our origin story.
Wow, that is so cool. So interesting. And so how did you what were you seeing in the market that was needed versus like the existing dry shampoo?
Yeah, so the dry shampoos that are in the market, most of them are powder based. So whether it's aerosolized powder, which a lot of those also have some health concerns that go along with them, or more of a powder that you're putting on your head, like in a baby powder, or some of them come in powder compacts that look a little bit more like makeup. Those only work if you have a little bit of sweat on your hair. They'll absorb some sweat, some oil, but if you have truly wet hair, it's going to turn the consistency of slime on your head. And the other thing about dry shampoos is you're trying to clean your hair, but you're adding something to it, which always felt counterintuitive. So when we created our showerless shampoo, our goal was really to take away the sweat physically. So it works a bit differently than a traditional dry shampoo. I actually brought some to show that it is the consistency of water. So it really just mixes in with the sweat in your hair. And then when you towel dry it out, it physically removes the dirt and the sweat. So it truly is a first in kind product. And I love it. I'm watching Natalie's jaw drop.
What? Oh my gosh. Amazing. And I heard that you had a little bit of a challenging launch. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So when we launched, we were about a week and a half out from launch, and we were getting ready to ship our product from our from our lab to our warehouse. And we found out that the product actually had gotten contaminated and did not pass quality control. So we had to dump 5,000 of our 6,000 bottles of product before launch. And when I say dump, I mean it was properly disposed of and recycled. I don't want anybody to think we just threw 5,000 bottles of product in the garbage, but we did have to responsibly dispose of the 5,000 bottles of product. And we were working with a PR firm at the time that had secured some exclusive launch day press. So they had to really scramble and get all of that pushed back. Meanwhile, my co-founder Meredith and myself were working behind the scenes on ops to get, 5,000 more bottles, 5,000 more labels, 5,000 more sprayers. And luckily the lab understood it was their responsibility. So they helped pay for
Oh,
all of the new components, and they worked overtime for us. So luckily we only had to push back launch by about a month and a half. But I always say that that is the moment that I was so glad that I had a co-founder, because I think if I was just going at it myself, I may have just been like, it's a sign, and, not hustled. But, we pushed each other to get through that moment. And in a weird way, it was a good way to start the brand, because the fact that we conquered that hurdle really made us feel quite like Teflon, like anything that comes our way. And as founders, things come your way on a daily basis. It really feels like no big deal. Like, well, we could get through that. Nothing's stopping us now.
amazing. That really, it does add an element of like, I don't know, it's very interesting and very exciting that you had to go through that right at the beginning, right at the hardest point, the scariest point for a lot of people. What goes into a launch is huge. So to have to be so fast and restructure everything, that's a testament to both you guys and the brand itself, the product itself.
Yeah, I always joke that like founders are also firefighters, and we like should be wearing red hats at work every day with all of the fires that we're putting out. But yeah, I think we really just believe in what we're doing, and knew that there's a place for our brand in the market. So we were not going to let that stop us.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. When you first told me that story, I was like, my heart was breaking for you. Like, oh my gosh, like how challenging that must have been for you guys. And then also to think about it from a monetary perspective, like all of the money that you lost because of it.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
goodness.
there was this other layer that I don't think I had mentioned, that because it was during COVID, it was really hard for us to get even the first bottles and sprayers, because they were all going to more medicinal products like hand sanitizers and things like that. So we actually had to go to some second choices. And we didn't get to use exactly what we had hoped for launch, but it was, luckily no one had seen the product before, so they didn't notice the subtle differences that we ended up choosing. And it was more important for us to get the product out there in a relatively timely manner than have to wait the months and months that it would have been for us to completely replicate the first production run.
That makes sense. So we talked a little bit about how your product works. Does it work on all hair types?
Yeah, so our product tends to work best on straight and wavy hair, but it is perfectly safe for all hair types. The thing that you really have to do is maybe modify exactly how you're using it. So straight or wavy hair uses it with our general directions, where you just spray a little bit of product on your hair, a very fine mist, you towel dry it out, and then you just air dry or blow dry like you would normally style your hair. For people with curly hair and coily hair, which I've been learning a lot more about on this founder of a hair care brand journey. We've heard that some people really like to use a t-shirt instead of a towel for towel drying. Or maybe they're also adding a little bit of gel to the process as well. So people experiment and find out a way for it to work with their hair. We've had people with dreadlocks say that they like to use it as a way to clean their protective styles. So it's interesting and exciting for us to hear how people are finding ways to make it work for their hair. And it's really all about experimenting. I say the most important thing for us was that we just wanted to make sure that it was safe for all hair types. So whether you have extensions, even if you have a natural hair wig, if you have any sort of chemical processes on your hair, we just wanted to make sure it was safe. So that way people can, see how they can implement the product into the routine, but certainly wasn't going to harm or damage anybody's hair.
And I noticed that you've been in Vogue and Allure, your website, swairhair.com. Obviously, you have a lot of content on there. Did you do any PR when you launched your brand?
Yeah, so since my background was in fashion accessories, which is an Also, a lot of my career was like in the early aughts, if I'm dating myself, where, traditional PR was very, very strong, especially for accessories. And that was the way that people were discovering new product, was flipping through a magazine. That I've really always believed in traditional PR. I think now it plays a different role in the consumer journey. So you may be featured by, we've been featured by Allure and Vogue and Glamour and had the Today Show, like really amazing, amazing press. But even if a customer isn't buying it from where they're first seeing it, it's something, as you mentioned, we can put on our website so people are seeing us there. We can put it in our social media as seen on, as seen in. We can do email blast that reminds customers of where we've been featured. So it almost functions as a trust badge in the way that maybe you're checking out on a website and you see that little secure symbol, that it really helps the customer understand that editors who are seeing thousands of products a year stand by this product that they've chosen to point out. So I think it really helps give trust to the customer.
Great way to put it, especially for a newer brand. Being able to establish those points of trust it's very important when you're, a new brand to the consumer.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey learning which types of articles and publications do help to push the sales immediately, where all of a sudden we'll see our web sales going crazy, and then we Google and we'll see that we're in Real Simple, and that one really rang the register, versus being in Allure, if I'm being completely transparent, didn't really drive sales. But saying that we've been featured in Allure is obviously an amazing thing for the brand.
Totally.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because when I had my makeup company a few years back, it was the same thing. Like we made it into these publications, but we didn't always see the numbers reflect it. We didn't always see the sales come in. But like you said, you put that on your website, people see that as a trust badge. And I think that's really important. And I think that a lot of brands, they're very focused on social media, but they don't think about traditional PR, and they're a little bit scared of it because it costs a lot of money to do, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah, I think that it's not necessarily a return on investment equation that you can easily crunch, but it creates that halo effect, which, if you get it right, is priceless.
Right.
So for us, we really felt like it was worth the investment.
Yeah, and I think because you have a product that is new to the market, but not completely new, meaning like someone else had a dry shampoo before, but you improved on the dry shampoo and made it one of a kind of its own version. And I think, noticing what wasn't working in those ones and then improving on it, I think definitely gave you a leg up. I wanted to jump into when we spoke before, you mentioned that you were in Target's accelerator program. Can you tell us about that experience and how did your packaging evolve over time? Because that I think happened in the accelerator, right?
Yeah, the Target Accelerator program, they have a couple of different programs. We did the Forward Founders, which is small brands that are working on becoming retail ready. So they're not saying you're going to come out of this accelerator and we're putting you on Target shelves, but they're looking at you and saying, we think that you have potential. We want to teach you our system so that we can see you here over time. So it was a really amazing experience. And I'd like to say, I almost feel like I got my MBA in consumer packaged goods from that program. And it completed in the end of December. And actually, my co-founder and I were still going back through the programming to almost give it a second view, because when you're in the program, it all moves so fast. So we're going back through the programming systematically now to try and implement it for the brand. But a lot of the emphasis at Target in the accelerator program and with larger retailers really is on packaging. So obviously, if you are selling your product on your website or on any website, you can have a lot of information that the customer is almost prepared to read when they want to read the testimonials, they want to read the instructions, they want to click and watch the demo, versus if you are walking down an aisle at Target, you have about less than 2 seconds to grab their attention. So one thing that they told us, right now, we are in 8-ounce bottles for our full size. they suggested maybe going to a box so that we had one, physically taking up more shelf space, and then two, being able to put more product, more information on the box. Because right now we just have a little bit of room where we can write, the name of the product. But as you mentioned, it is kind of dry shampoo improved. And how can we communicate that to somebody just walking down the hair care aisle? So another thing that we also did was we improved our instructions. It is a new behavior, as we talked about. So now we've added icons to our directions to make that a little bit more understandable. A lot of people, because we are in the same category as a dry shampoo, they assume they could just use the product the same way. And unfortunately, you're not going to get great results if you just spray and go as you would a traditional dry shampoo. So I'm really learning how to stop the customer in their tracks and then educate them is something that we learned and something that we are actively working on.
Super interesting. So can you walk us through a little bit about how, like, what those steps are? I'm super curious, and I'm sure that people listening are going to be curious as well.
So when you're using showerless shampoo, as opposed to a traditional dry shampoo, people are used to, with the traditional dry shampoos, just putting the product on their hair, letting it set in and getting, in my opinion, varied results. With showerless shampoo, you actually, our 8-ounce bottles, they last most customers 10 to 12 months. You're just spraying a fine mist over your hair. So I kind of always recommend, think of it in top, middle, and bottom. So, a fine mist over the top of your hair, pick up the first layer, fine mist over the middle of your hair, pick up the second layer, fine mist at the bottom of your hair. And then towel drying it out. And that actually is quickly cleaning your hair by removing the dirt and sweat with the towel. And the way that the formulation interacts with your hair kind of helps to repel the dirt, which is our secret sauce. And then depending on how wet your hair is, there's some days that I'm sopping wet with sweat, so my hair is quite wet, that I may have to, give it a little bit of a blow dry, or you can air dry and then just style as usual.
That is truly amazing. I can't wait to try this product. I am a user of dry shampoo without loving it. Like I actually don't like it. I just don't want to wash my hair every day. So I
Yeah.
use dry shampoo and I hate the texture of my hair. Like I've tried so many and it gets kind of like this almost sandy like texture, or like as if I'm volumizing my hair when I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to try that. That's amazing.
When we spoke last time, you had talked to me about your label, and
Mhm.
we were talking a little bit about some of the changes that you had
Mhm.
to make based on the label itself, like how it
Mhm.
was currently produced and how you're moving away from how it's currently
Okay.
produced. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe even show it if you have it there?
Yeah. So this is actually, we talked about being firefighters, and this is a fire that I'm currently in the middle of right now. Meredith, my co-founder, and I, we went to our lab a few weeks ago, and they said, "Oh, we actually have showerless shampoo to produce. We're gonna, we're gonna run the production line when you're there, so you can see it in front of your eyes." And it was a good thing we were there because our label was not going on correctly at all. We have a label with, it's not a rectangle, it has like a curve that mimics our logo on the side of it. And that's, the blank space on the bottle.
So that has
And
a gap right there. Like instead of it
yes.
coming back to the back and then
Mhm.
there's a gap like with straight, yours is
Mhm.
curved and
Yeah.
where the gap is. Okay. Mhm.
And one thing that we had not been aware of previously was for our last production runs, the lab actually hand applied our label. But because we're doing, luckily, business is good and we're doing larger production runs, that was not an option with this one. And the machine just could not handle our label. Just the fact that it was a wave instead of a straight line at the end of that rectangle, the label was twisting and bubbling. So we had to make a decision on the spot. um, the finished product did not look good. So Meredith and I said, stop the presses. They ripped off by hand any label that had already been applied, that was not looking good. And then we had to go back to the drawing board a little bit. We sent the label to 2 specialty label companies that work with particularly complicated labels, got varying results from them. One of them said, we can't get this right. The other label specialty person said, we can do it for you. It's not easy. But as a brand that is small and wants to be able to work with a variety of different labs without these issues and having to send the bottles all around the country to get the label applied, we just said, even a little complicated is too complicated for our supply chain at this point. So now we're in the process of developing a proper rectangle label. We're going to print on a clear label as opposed to a white label, and we're going to leave a blank space to mimic that curve that we are known for on our packaging. And we were really worried that it was not going to look good, that it was going to look cheesy, if I'm being completely honest. And we got a first sample earlier this week, and it actually looks great. And it's one of these things like, why didn't we do this early?
It makes sense that trying to do 2 waves and make it match would be very, very difficult and definitely have varying results. So I think that going to a clear label was the smart move, and I'm so glad that it looks good. And now it's always gonna look good every
Yes.
time.
Yeah, we were very nervous. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got that was really interesting was because the edge of the label is wavy, the way that the pressure is applied throughout the application process gets skewed a little bit because there's not the same amount of label touching the machine at all times. And they felt like that was the reason why they were twisting, which if you think about it, it makes sense. If you're putting the
Yeah.
same amount of pressure on something that's not even, it's going to twist. But
Right.
we
Yeah, so
learned
the
the hard way.
tolerances are, yeah, they're not, you can't be as precise. And then I think when we talked about it before, you mentioned that it could be done, but then you'd be throwing away a lot. And
Yeah, yeah.
why do that?
Exactly. I mean, we don't want to compromise on our brand vision and our brand aesthetic, but we cannot reinvent the wheel as a small self-funded brand.
Art. I feel like that's really what it's all about as a founder building your own business is finding the solutions that are going to work for you and putting your own brand and your own touch onto it so that everybody can see that it's you. I think that's a brilliant way of handling that. We've talked about a few areas where you've kind of run into trouble or had to handle things, especially, spur of the moment. What would you say is your biggest hurdle so far in building this business?
I think for us, our biggest challenge, and it's something that we talked through a little bit, is really just re-educating the consumer. Um, they think that they understand our product, and the onus is really on Swair to do all of this education. But I think that that's been more difficult than I realized it was going to be, to kind of retrain people's habits. Or even if they read the instructions, they're like, it'll work just like, my other products in my bathroom. So we're really doing a lot in terms of our messaging on social media. Pretty much all of our ads, or the ads where we're finding the most success, are just demos. So people kind of understand what they're buying, including one thing that we're planning to implement before the end of 2024 is some more postcards or some sort of messaging when you buy the product, so you physically have something in your hands in addition to what's on the back of the bottle, to remind people that this is used differently. So yeah, it's really the customer education, which has been our biggest pain point, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have like a QR code so that they can click to go see a video or something like that?
We will have a QR code. The first step that we're actually implementing as we speak is adding some additional paper materials to our Amazon packages, where we find that the customer is going through the journey a little bit more quickly. The people that are buying our product on our website are watching the demos a little bit more and spending some more time learning the product. We do find that on Amazon, it's a little bit more, buy now, which in general is a great thing. We want them to buy without hesitation, but not fully understanding what they are getting. So Amazon is our first priority, where we're going to put some a QR code and some additional information in the box with the bottle. It was something that we tried not to do from a sustainability perspective. But as you'd mentioned, Natalie, like you just sometimes have to make choices that are best, for the business. So we are really doing our best to make sure that we're working with responsible, like recycled paper or recyclable paper. That's all the process we're going through now. But yeah, sometimes you just got to change on the fly if it's not working.
Absolutely, absolutely. And be very fast thinking.
Yes, fail fast. That is a founder mantra.
Oh, I love that. I think everybody should use that actually in life.
Where are you hoping to take your brand in the future? Do you have any new product launches planned?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting things planned. I mean, our overall vision for the brand is really to be the Lululemon of hair and body. So we want to end up making a wide variety of products that really suit a person with an active lifestyle. So it's what you're finding in your gym bag, it's what you're finding at your favorite locker room, in your studio. It's what you're buying at Target when you're getting a new sports bra. So really to complement that lifestyle. And then something that I'm, as a mom, particularly excited about is we also are launching, I don't have a definite time on this, but we want to be launching Little Swair, so a youth version of our showerless shampoo, which is just a necessity, I think, for anybody with kids, as a way to, make quick transitions. I know I'm picking up my boys at a sports practice and then they're going out to dinner with grandma and they smell disgusting. So a way to just quickly clean their hair on the fly. Or there's a lot of kids, whether it's just preference or like a true sensory issue, that don't like to wash their hair. So this is also a great way to avoid those bath time, shower time struggle. So super excited about that.
Is there anything that you wish that you would have known before started? If you could give yourself advice before starting this journey, what would you say?
Ooh, there's so much. I think that we probably would have, this is like a very technical suggestion, but I think that we would have looked into small business loans sooner. I think we were really dependent on bootstrapping, and thought that, luckily actually in 2023, we were profitable, which was amazing. But I think that we thought that the growth was going to happen sooner than it did, a little bit like naive first time founders. And I think until recently, we hadn't looked into lenders, and that's going to be transformational for the business, particularly with that Little Square launch.
I think a lot of people, they aren't aware of what it actually takes to launch a business until you've done it.
Mhm.
So both financially, time-wise, setting targets for yourself, of course, believe in the moon, go for the moon, but know that it can always take a little longer than you expect to hit certain levels. And that's a great thing for people to think in mind. And definitely in regards to financing too, there are such great programs out there for people, because that's one thing that we do quite well, is help our startups and help our businesses. So people should take advantage of that.
Yes.
Carrie, when did you start? Because you said you were profitable in 2023.
Mhm.
When did you start?
Our website went live September 17th of 2020. So we're about 3.5 years old. But I should say that one of the reasons why we're so profitable early in our journey is because my co-founder doesn't let me spend money. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that really is the answer, but we are so on a shoestring budget and really challenge ourselves to be scrappy. And I'm glad that we've been that way, because now when we're thinking about our use of funds, as we are taking in some like debt funding from lenders, like knowing exactly where that's going to go and the impact that it's going to have. I think that, having to be so scrappy is a blessing and a curse. It really is forcing us to go more slowly than we had, like, when we dreamed of the brand. But we've been able to learn lessons along the way and course correct. Where I think that brands with a lot of funding, spend pretty wildly, may get themselves involved, whether it's like, contracts or employees or other things that are a little bit harder to dig yourself out of financially, but we're so lean and mean in a way that we're really proud of. But now I think that we are finally ready to fan the flame.
And how many people are who work with you? Is it just you and your co-founder?
So it's myself, my co-founder. It's still a side hustle for her, and then we do, have a couple of contract employees that are more specialists. Media buyers for our Meta Facebook ads, and bringing in a branding person to make our logo and our brand colors. Like, so we have worked with different partners, but nobody that's been on true payroll. I think we're getting ready to bring in an entry level marketing person within, I don't want to put a timeline on it, but we're definitely at that point where we need to bring in some help.
A lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, okay, I'm just going to quit my job and start doing this business. And I'm like, wait a minute, slow down. Like, keep your job, do this on the side, start doing it slowly because it's going to take a while until it's profitable. And as you said, like you started in 2020, 2023, you were profitable, but that's early. Like
Yeah.
some people are not profitable. Like what did you typically hear out there when people would become profitable? Like 5 years or beyond?
I think depending on the company's financial structure, it could like there's some of these, I don't want to quote names because I truly like don't know who is profitable and who's not, but a lot of these companies that get, venture funding, off the bat, like they have an idea and they present it to a venture capital firm and they get like $2 million to start their brand from scratch. A lot of those are just able to like almost buy their sales for the first period of time. There's a lot of big brands that aren't profitable at, 10 years in, but I would say, there's so much that goes into it that it's I almost just want to say like go on your own journey and like what like whatever works for you. And I think for us, we're also on our own journey, that there are a lot of brands that you hear of these overnight successes, or K18 is like a hair brand that was really hot and sold very quickly, and they were doing like $100 million in sales and sold for like hundreds of millions of dollars, and they started around the same time that we did, but they're a very different business. Their background is different. Their connections are different. Their funding was different. They got a lot of venture capital funding to help them grow and, have a huge team from day one. And we're just on a different journey, but it's what feels comfortable to us in terms of like the risks that we're willing to take, and just making it fun for us and doing it our way. I think we'd rather it take longer to become a quote unquote overnight success, but feel really good about the way that we're doing it.
I love that. I definitely agree that everybody has to have the journey that suits their personality and what they want to put in. And oftentimes businesses, they do end up being kind of an exponential growth after a certain amount of years, when you're ready for that enormous expansion, but you don't want to experience that if you're not ready for it, or maybe you want to, sort out certain things like the education, like getting everything perfectly ready to then be able to fan the flames, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And if you had like one piece of advice for a new entrepreneur, what would it be?
I always say that asking questions is your superpower for a founder, for anybody. I mean, this is founder advice, but life advice. And we were beauty industry outsiders, and we had to ask a lot of very basic questions to some very sophisticated people, asking about like, what does this ingredient do, to like a chemist who's been in the hair care industry for 30 years. And what we've learned is ask all the questions. If people don't want to answer them or judge you based on the questions you ask, they're not a partner for you anyway. And there's enough people out there that you will find the right ones to help you. And more often than not, people are willing to share their knowledge and like sharing their knowledge. So, I've had to ask some very basic questions, but yeah, it's served us well, and it's really helped our journey. And we also try and pay it forward to other founders and other people starting out.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
One thing that I have gotten so passionate about, being on this side of it is really just supporting small businesses, and simple things like leaving reviews, whether it's for Swair or for another small business. Those little acts go a really long way. So I always encourage people to do that. That's like one of my messages right now. And also, we didn't talk about ingredients where our showerless shampoo is more than 99% all natural. A lot of the dry shampoos out there have carcinogenic byproducts that are not on their labels. So I just also really encourage people, do your research, ask, doctor, dermatologist, Dr. Google if you need to. You may not always get the most accurate information, but you'll learn a little something new. And while we all can't be perfect, I'm certainly not perfect in my clean beauty journey. But it does matter what you're putting on your body and in your body. So just take a little bit of time to learn what's out there.
I love that. Absolutely.
Thank you, Carrie. This was an amazing interview today. You just shared so much juicy information, and we loved having you on.
It's been amazing. I feel like I learned so much. Thank you so much for being so open with your journey and educating on your product and everything like that. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no, I'm glad to be here and love to share.
That wraps up another episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.